construction. Okay, annotation is basically any sort of a note that goes into a construction drawing set. So it can be as simple as a dimension, okay? And it also includes room labels. We also have even some of your tags like this, like our interior elevation tags, our section lines. All of those really fall under annotation. And so as a very base, we all know how to put in dimensions, but what we are going to expand on is how to properly do dimensions. And that's something that we might not get to today. So if you look at the board, what we're really going to be looking at today is how to put in our room tags. And our room tags is basically a room label. And in addition to that, as we're learning that, we're going to learn about room separation lines and how to go into something called our manager to control some of our line weights. And then I'm going to talk about keynotes versus text notes. So just a quick note before we even get into that. In our class, we primarily focus on text notes. So that means that we create them, we enter in all of the information. There are some offices who use the actual keynote button. And what that does is when you click that button and you click on an object, someone in the office, maybe you, maybe a spec writer, I'm not sure, they have actually gone through and entered in all of the information. So I will show you how to do both, but just know that primarily in this class, we will be working on text notes. Okay?
The keynotes are linked then, kind of?
Say that a little bit louder.
The keynotes are linked to the file?
Yeah, they are. Yep.
Okay.
They're linked to a file and also maybe even a spec. Oh no, the whole class. All right, so let's start with the room tags. It's pretty straightforward. There's only a couple things to remember to troubleshoot them. So if you click on room, or RM, I'm going to show you on my screen how it works. But right now I'm just hovering, and can you see that Revit is looking for wall boundaries? Like it kind of has an idea of, okay, this is an enclosed space, that's an enclosed space, this is probably a room. Do you guys see that? And here in like this kitchen living area, it's such a big space that it just thinks it's one giant room. Okay, let's start in the bedroom and we can just click to place it. And then if we want to keep going, let's actually keep going. Let's click into the this space, and this space. And then when you're done, hit escape. And by default, it starts at room number 1. So I've got room number 1, 2, 3, and 4. The order of how we put them in isn't important because we will more than likely change that. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's talk about the actual room tag to start. So if we were, I keep going back to this example. Pretend it's a wall, right? If we wanted to see a wall's properties, how could we do that? We'd click on it, right? And then go up to properties. And do you see that when I clicked on it, it says room tag with area? And when I pull down, I can change it to just a simple room tag, or I can also do room tag with volume. And it's saying not computed because I don't have a ceiling on this. So to do a volume, you have to have all the spaces. So really, depending on your project, you can decide what you want to show or what your client needs to see. For my projects, I typically only do the room label and not the square footage, but there are some points of the project where I keep the square footage on. Like early on when the client's just getting to know the space and they might want to know, how big are these areas, I keep them on. Or if I'm making a plan for like a carpet installer, or even like on elevations, if I wanted to calculate how much tiles going in an area, I'll keep the square footage on. Okay, like I said, it's not common, but it is helpful to have it automatically calculate. So, couple little tricks. If you wanted to change all of these to not show the square footage, I'm going to go back to something that we talked about maybe the first or second week of class, and we haven't talked about it since. So what we're going to do is click on one of these room labels and then right click. And do you guys remember select all instances? It's been several weeks. And if you do visible in view, that means everything in your main level, but not like your second level or third level, but just everything in the main level. Do you see that it grabs all of those? So you can do, let me do that one more time. When you do the right click, select all instances, and you could do the entire project, you just have to make sure you're not negatively impacting your project. These are just room labels, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But you can do that with door tags, room labels, walls, I mean really anything. If you needed to select a whole bunch of stuff at once and change them. Like for example, if you knew that all of your interior walls, if they used to be a wood stud and you absolutely need to change them to a metal stud, you could do it that way and change all of the properties. But after I do that, I'm going to go back to room tag and let it be. Quick pause. Makes sense. Okay. I'm still going to ask, was everybody able to at least select everything and change it? Yeah, okay. And on that note, I'm happy to show you anything again, but maybe just flag me down if you need me to, okay? So we've got our rooms changed to be just room tag, not room tag with square footage. And if we wanted to keep adding, we would type in RM, and let's do our kitchen. And when we come down here, do you see how it thinks that both the kitchen and the living room are 470 square feet? No, what I forgot to do is change this. Like I should have come down here and changed it to the regular room tag so that it didn't keep putting it in with the volume. And then when I try to put it in here, it kind of gets mad at me. Multiple rooms are in the same enclosed region. The correct area and perimeter will be assigned to one room, and the others will display a redundant room. So I'll go ahead and say okay for now, or you could have deleted it. But they just kind of look like there's two room tags in one area, essentially. So what we can do to fix that, and you can do that before you put in the room labels or after, it's completely up to you. Yeah.
My room tags go 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
That's so you may have deleted number 5.
Okay.
And so once you've used it and even deleted it, it knows that that number was used. Yeah, and so it just skips on to the next one. But like I said, we rarely use the default room numbers. And the reason why is when we're on the first level, we always name the rooms starting at room number 100 and then 101, 102. And then on the second level, we start at 200 and then go from there. So we're going to change all of these anyway, okay? But one other thing that will help us, do you guys see that there's a room separator? So it's right next to room, and this is really straightforward. Essentially what you do is you click on it and it lets you draw a line or whatever shape. For me, it's typically a line, and it lets you separate the rooms. So we could even do like kitchen, dining, and living, right? For now, I'm just gonna separate the kitchen. So from this point right here over, I'm just gonna call that the kitchen. And did you see, at least on my screen, it automatically took this down to 104 square feet from like the 407 it was a few minutes ago? So do me a favor and just draw that line here. And you'll kind of be able to graphically check too. So for example, if I click on room 6, at least in my living room area, do you see how it's kind of highlighted in red? it lets you know what the room boundary is. That's kind of what it's showing. So you have control to change these boundaries. And again, it's all through the room separator. You can go through and kind of outline what those look like. Okay. Now, right now, the room separator looks like it's a threshold, right? Even though it's like the same type of finish. So that takes me to the next part. So we talked about the room separation line. The second part is going to manage. So this is something that we haven't done before. This goes beyond the fundamentals of Revit. So to me, this is kind of like advanced Revit, 101. But it's something important to know so that when you're managing your own projects at school, at your own practice, or maybe in an office, you know how to take care of this stuff. So, nope, I lied. It's not under manage. It moved. It's even easier now. It's not advanced. If you go to VV, I'm going to see if you guys can find it in here, because it's a little bit tricky. But I'm going to just let you guys look through the VV menu and see if you can find a room separation line to turn off. I was thinking of something else when I wrote manager. These lines used to be green by default, and so the manager lets us change it from green to black. There's something else later in the semester we'll need this, but not yet. Alright, so let me show you where that is. It is actually under a model line, and if you expand this line menu, you should be able to see the room separation in brackets.
Sorry,
David?
bring up that dialogue.
VV.
Huh?
VV.
Oh.
Yep, so, yeah. And when you turn off room separation, the line will turn off, so I'm going to hit apply. See how the line is gone? And that's, I think, what you want 99% of the time. You don't want to see that threshold there. You can still draw room separator lines, like let's say I do want to distinguish between maybe this dining area or whatever that might be in the living room. It'll warn me, it'll say none of the created elements are visible in the floor plan, but they've still been created. And I know that because when I click on this room 6, do you see that it knows that I drew that room separation line there? Now here's what's important about a room separation, and in fact, I haven't tried this before, but let's see what happens if I don't draw it all the way across, if it gets mad at me. Okay, it doesn't work. So it does have to go all the way across to really create an enclosure in that room. Okay, so even if it's like a tiny bit short, it's better to overlap than it is to come up short. So just to make sure you guys understood that concept, why don't you go ahead and create one more room here, and then we'll go through and start naming these. And in fact, what I'd like you to do is even put one here. Let's call this the entry, right? And then we'll do this one separate. So make the entry its own, and then make like a little dining area here. You can decide where the lines go. One thing that we're not going to get into yet, that we're going to get into later, is you might not like the font on the labels, and changing the font on the labels is kind of an advanced thing. It goes into editing families, and typically in this class we don't edit families, but I always like to show people how to do it so that you know how, and so that'll be coming later in addition to making your own title blocks. But for now, we're essentially just going to take what Revit has to give us. Couple things just to remind you of. If you click on a room label and go to CS for create similar, you can still create room labels. I don't know why it's not working. They're so fast. Thanks, Julie. Okay, let me check one thing. Let me do similar.
So there's the tag room button for adding labels after you put
Yeah.
the
So that's what I was trying to show you. You're reading my mind, David. Let me,
Can you just hit rooms as easily?
no, I'll show you why. I'm glad you said that. I already have one there. Let me come over here. Okay. Okay, so I lied. Create similar doesn't work to recreate your tag. Okay, so you would just have to type in RM and do it again. And let me show you. So I clicked on this and I am doing create similar, and it's not placing the tag. Okay, but if I just type in RM for room label, then it puts it in. Now, let me give you guys just some names here so it'll make sense as to, so I'm not talking about kind of random spaces, and you guys don't need to do this just yet, but I'm going to show you what you can do to troubleshoot, and again, further proof as to how smart Revit is. Okay, let's say that I'm working really fast and I think that this entry label is in the way, and when you try to drag it, do you see how it gets mad at you? We'll come back to that. Okay, so I'm working fast, I'm frustrated that it kind of disappears. I move it back to the room, and I really just need to get it out of the way, so I hit delete. Do you see that it says a room tag was deleted, but the corresponding room still exists? Okay, what that means is if I go up to tag room, or RT, it puts that tag back into place. So even though the tag is gone, Revit remembers where that room was. So an important thing to also remember is that when you're working in Revit, the room and the room tag are distinct from one another. Let me show you again in the kitchen because it's bigger. So take a peek at my screen. When I click on the kitchen tag and hit delete, again, the room tag was deleted, but the room still exists. Do you see that I can still kind of hover in this space and find where the room is, right? So it means that the room is still there. So if I type in TG again, no, RT, I have to remember what these shortcuts are, then it brings kitchen back. And it'll bring back everything, the number, the name, everything. But if I went one step further and not just deleted the tag, but if I had deleted the room, then if I hit tag room, do you see how it's not doing anything? That's because there's not a room there to tag. It's going to relabel dining as many times as I want because it knows that there's a dining room there. But you can't use tag unless there's a room that already exists.
So you hit room again?
Yep, so the first time you're naming a room, it has to be RM. Now the thing that you don't want to do, everybody saw, I'm in RM right now, right? So I'm in room tag, or I'm in room, and if I try to re-tag a room, like dining, let me do this one again. See how it gets mad at me? Because I'm not just placing a tag, it's saying a redundant room. It's saying that there's already a dining room here and you're placing a tag. So please pay close attention to those, because one of the last things that we go over in this class is schedules, and schedules are tied to the rooms. So the schedules will look at a room tag, it'll see the walls that are enclosed by it, and then it'll gather that information. And so if there's duplicate rooms, it'll have trouble calculating the square footages and the volumes. Okay. So again, even though you delete the tag, like even right now, if I put it in and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Let me do that one more time. So if I put it in and I just say, okay, I'm going to have a redundant room in here. If I click on it and delete it, is that enough? Did I delete the redundant room yet, or did I just delete the tag?
So you're trying to use like the room button instead
Uh-huh.
of the room tag button, or
Mhm.
tag room button?
Mm-hmm. So from the top, the first time you put in a room label, it should be room.
Yeah.
Okay? So always use room. If you accidentally delete the tag, but the room has already been created, then you use,
Okay.
which one is that?
Tag room.
Tag room. Mm-hmm. So the room's been created, but the label is gone.
So how do you tell if you've got more than one room on top of each other?
What you can do is if you hover around the room, you'll be able to find those edges. And see how mine says dining 8, right? You could also go to TG. No, I'm so sorry. I use different, it's RT, room tag. If you go to RT and just kind of hover over the rooms, it'll tell you if you have 1 or 2 in there. And
So
it'll,
one of my rooms I can see 2 exits.
okay,
Does that mean I have to?
you do
I
have
think
2
dark is
rooms.
blue.
Yep, so you do have 2 rooms. And let me show you, let me do a room with double, and I'll show you how to kind of troubleshoot. So see how in my master bedroom, I'm creating 2?
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna click that in there and do okay. Does yours have a room tag or no?
There's 1 room tag.
Okay,
I think I
so
can
2
leave it that
rooms,
way.
but 1 room tag. So I'm gonna copy you, I'm gonna delete my tag, but see how the room is still there? So to help us out, you could keep hovering and see how there's 1X here and then 1X there, right? You could do that, or if you type in RT, you can get a better idea to pinpoint where that room is. And what I would do, this isn't like anything official that Revit would teach you. I just put my cursor close to that, right? So I'll know where to hit, and then I hit escape. And when I hit escape, do you see how it's already highlighting it? Let me do that one more time. So the question was, how do you find out if you have 2 rooms in an area, or how can you click on it? So one thing that I do, I just kind of go through and hover, right? So there's 1, there's 2, but this is kind of hard to do, especially when there's a whole bunch of stuff on your screen. So a better way is to go and type in RT for room tag. And the reason why I do that is it shows every room that's already in the plan. And what I was mentioning is if you just go and put your cursor near where the redundant room is, and then as soon as you do that and hit escape, your cursor will essentially be right on top of where you need to click. And now I click and I can hit delete. And it says, warning, a room was deleted from all model views, but still remains in this project. So this is like going back to what Riley was saying earlier. Remember how you deleted room number 5, so it went to room number 6? Since it's already used that number, it's not going to reuse that number. Heather, did that work for you?
No, so there.
Is it? Okay. I'm going to... one of the examples that I was showing earlier is, you know, especially in a tiny house, like take a look at our bathroom, right? This tag does not really fit in here. I'm going to click on the tag, and I want you guys to look at my options and tell me if you recognize something that will help us move it out of the way. Do you guys see anything that looks familiar? Do you remember this button right here? The leader. So when we were working on windows and doors, it added it automatically. So here's what happens. If you don't click on leader and you try to move this out of the room, you're putting it in no man's land. It has nothing to calculate. That's why it gets confused and angry. But if you, I'm going to hit, click on it again. If I turn on leader, then it knows, okay, the tag is here, but this is the room that you're calculating. I wish Revit would just have that on by default. It seems like something that should be on by default, but it isn't. So again, on a room tag, just make sure leader is on, and then you should be able to move it out of the room. And here's what happens. If it turns off, oh, it moved it back. So that's a new thing. Revit used to not do that. But now that it's off, see how I get the question marks? So again, if you get the question marks, turn on leader. Yeah, Riley?
My leader box is checked, and it's giving me that same room tag is outside of its room.
Yep, so click on leader.
I did, and I can see the little check is checked in the box.
Click off of it real quick. Maybe give your graphic card a minute to catch up. Did it work that time? Okay, what I would do is you can, I'm sorry, I can't think. Where is this end inside the bathroom?
Yes.
Even if it was over here, I mean, it gets mad, but make sure that this end is in the bathroom. Okay.
Like the line is literally being drawn from just in front of the toilet to out there, and it's being goofy.
But it's still mad at you.
I know how to do it, so it's fine. It's just.
Okay. Well, I would do that. Make sure that it works. Turn it back off so it moves it back in the room, right? And then click on it again. Turn leader on, and then try to move it one more time. I want to make sure it works before we move on, because it shouldn't be doing what it's doing right now.
I did that, and it has question marks and all.
All right, so one thing again that I failed to mention, let me turn off my leader. When you want to move a room tag, you actually have to click on this area right here. Yep, you can see it on the lecture. It's that four-sided move symbol. So I move it out. It's still angry. But if I turn on leader and I try to just select room, do you see how that didn't work? It's super subtle. Oops. I'm going to click on it again. I actually have to click on it and move it from this point right here. So your room tag essentially only has one point where you can click on it and move it. So watch out for that. So the thing that's really sneaky is right now you can't see it on my screen because it's red, but on your screen you can see that your cursor is a four-sided arrow as you're working. But look for the other one that's attached to the room label and you should be able to change it. And then the last thing I want to do before we move on is, let me do TR, no, I can't remember these shortcuts. RT, room tag. I don't have one in here. Okay, I forgot I deleted that one. I was like, where did it go? What I would like you guys to do is make sure you're at 1/4 inch scale. Have all of your room tags in here, and please make them legible. So make sure they're not over any other dimensions. Try to keep them away from furniture. So if that means you have to turn on your leader and move them out, please do. And starting with the entry, make entry 100, and then go around and name everything else like 101, 102, 103. This happens to me all the time. This is the family editor that we'll get into later. For now, just go ahead and close it.
So like you don't do sheets at 100, but you can do the
Uh-huh.
tags all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why that is because on our sheets, it isn't really sheet number 100, but it's A for architectural, 1 means floor plan, and then the numbers after that are the sheet number. So it's not really sheet number 100, but it's 101. So feel free to use those numbers here. All right, so now we're gonna hop on the next segment, which is notes. And I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about keynotes. I just want you guys to know where the button is, and then just know that for the majority of the time, we're gonna be doing text annotation for this. So the next menu that we're gonna hop into is annotate. And do you guys see that there is in fact a keynote button right here? Eventually, and maybe you have already, so for example, if I click on the toilet and then pull out from here, yes, it's like a two-headed tag. What this is doing is it wants you to tell Revit what the specification section is. And so if you're familiar with specs, they're part of your construction document and everything goes into a certain division. So for example, plumbing is division 22. And if I expand this, this is a plumbing fixture. And then I can expand it again. And I am looking for a water closet, right? So when you get into specs, there are people who have worked with specs for so long that they have just memorized all of these and they can tell you exactly what spec section it is. So then when you hit OK, it gives you that specific specification number. And as I mentioned, we're not doing that here in this class, but there are many offices who do their specifications this way. And the reason why is so that if somebody's working on a project and a toilet is called out, not only is the note there on that sheet, but then there's a binder, whether it's a PDF or a printed one, that actually has a specification section for the water closets. And it's called a specification because it specifies what type of a water closet. Like here, it could be anything. But in the spec, it'll give the manufacturer, the size, the finish, the installation, everything. And so most larger commercial offices like those two to correspond. So,
That eliminates conflicting information from different places. It's all
yeah,
one place,
exactly. Yep. So try that on just like one of them. I'm going to delete the one that I just drew. So again, under Annotate, go ahead and click on Keynote. And again, if you point to the toilet, mine remembered what it was. So once I said that this was a water closet, do you see how Revit remembered, like, oh, this is this specification section?
So it's considered a water closet, not a toilet, because toilet was listed on that.
So depending on, so water closets and toilets are basically the same thing. It just depends on the terminology that you use in your office. And then, for example, on the tub, that's still under plumbing. And then plumbing fixtures. And a lavatory, by the way, is also a sink. So you can see there's lavatory and then a whole bunch of sinks. This time I'm looking for, there's tub and bathtub and prefabricated. So see how you can get pretty specific? Either one of those works. I'm going to go ahead and click OK.
How did you get that menu to come up once you got your little thing coming out?
Click on it one more time to place it and it'll automatically pop up. Either your own practice or going on to another practice, you can help someone with that. Now, this will be how we do keynotes in our class. And it's just through the text, which is TX. And again, I got here, it's under Annotate, and you can see text. And it takes me to a Modify and Place Text menu. Now here, there's different types of arrows we can use. The first one by default is just a text box. So there's no arrow. I typically do a two-segmented one. And if I were to do the toilet again, again, the way that it would work, my first click is where it points. My second click is the end of the arrow, and then my third click is what's called the leader line. And then I can just start typing. I can even write like toilet bicolor. Again, I can be as specific or not specific as I want. And then I hit escape a couple times to get out of there. I'm gonna walk through the process. So depending on where you are, you might just be seeing if what you did is the same thing I'm doing. But I'm gonna start with this keynote that I already have in here. Again, if I was acting like it was a wall or basically any other thing in Revit, when I click on it, you can see that there are different sizes of text, and this one all falls under the Arial family. So we've got these 3 different sizes. But if I click on Edit Type, now I can go through and start to customize it on my own. So if I go to Duplicate here, at home, I actually call these, I name these based on my company. So I will have like acronym 3/32 of an inch, and that way I know, okay, this is like my company. Taylor, you might, do like Revit 3/32 or Taylor 3/32. Or the most straightforward thing to do is just to name it whatever the font is, Please not papyrus.
Before you start messing with it?
A little bit louder.
You hit duplicate before you start messing with it?
Yep, so that's what I did first. I hit duplicate and then I renamed it, acronym. And then here you've got some options. And so you can even, I'm going to skip down to the leader arrowhead. So there are different arrowheads that you can try. There's diagonals, there's filled dots. I wish that there was a preview, but there isn't. So what you can do is at some point you'll be able to hit apply and see what it looks like here. And I'm going to change this to my favorite kind of default font. And again, it's still not letting me apply it, so I'm just going to have to blindly hit OK. That dot is huge, and so this time I would just go to Edit Type and maybe go for Filled Dot Small. Oh, and now it's letting me apply it. I don't know what the different one. Maybe when you're creating it, it doesn't let you do preview. Maddie, you're mean. I said no Century Gothic. No, I said no papyrus, and you went right for it. Mean. But that's how you can kind of start to customize it a little bit. So remember, just maybe 10 minutes ago, I mentioned to you guys that we're going to do your room labels later. It's a little bit more involved. I want to show it to you so that your room labels match your text if this is the route you take. I don't want you to have different fonts on your file, so I will show you guys how to do it. Before I showed you, did it seem pretty straightforward? Did you guys feel comfortable trying it?
So you want the same font on the whole drawing?
Yeah, just to be consistent, at least with your notes and your room labels. Your tags, like the elevation markers and section cuts, those are nice just to stay the Arial. Those read really well. But at least your, again, your notes and your room tags. Let's make those consistent.
AutoCAD, if you had different true type fonts, it really knocks it to its menu.
Yeah. We don't have to worry about that in here, so.
We have to change each of them individually, right?
Not really. So let me, I don't have a lot of these. Let me just throw in a couple generic tags. I'm so slow today. I'm so embarrassed. I don't remember how to do it. There you go.
So if you edit the type, it pretty well defaults from everything you can do from then on, goes to that type?
No, because see how I just did mine and it's not defaulting to it? It's going back to the, so before you start working, you can do that. So I'm just doing this one, that one, and then maybe some of these. Okay. So, Heather, you were just asking, do I have to change each one individually? There's 2 things you can do right now, and because I have no brain power, I'm not going to ask. I'm just going to show you. So the first one will be going back to our example at the beginning of class. You select one, and then you right-click and go to Select All Instances, right? And it grabbed everything that is the 3/32 Arial. And now I can come down and change it to acronym. Got it? Now, if you only had one, let's say that one of them, like let's do this one. you didn't like the way acronym looked, you're using someone else's standard, you can use match attributes. Have we talked about match attributes yet? We talked about it with walls maybe, but it also works with annotation. So remember, it's like painting. So MA, you even see a little paintbrush, even though you can't see it on mine. When you paint, first you dip it into the color you want. So here's the color I want, and now I can brush this one. See how it changed it? So those two things kind of come back into play too. Right. I don't know why I stopped recording. Okay. Alright, so over here, I click on a note and I type in CC for copy. And when you do CC for copy, first you have to click where you want to move it from. This is my base point. And then my next move is actually copying it. And I want it just right below. I wish it gave a better preview. But this kind of ensures that they're all stacked up or like aligned. And then if I do CC again, now I can also do the dresser. But here's another part where my OCD hits in. You can't have crossed lines. So as like a contractor, anybody, it's too confusing to know like, okay, where does this line go? Where does that line go? So just quickly rearrange them. I mean, this is going to take me all of 15 seconds. So make sure that they're all kind of lined up neatly. These are really far apart. I don't know why they're so far apart. And then again, just take a minute, make them as even as you can, and then just take a minute to kind of rearrange. And this is the nature of construction drawings. This is a tiny plan, and look at how busy it's getting. Right? It gets pretty crazy, but this is where we're going. We need this much detail to make these 2D details come to life. So what I would like you guys to do for your assignment this week, you can even just turn in what you guys have like at the end of class, just get it in before next week. I want you guys to go through and add room labels and notes to both of your plans. And the question that I always get is, well, how many notes do I need? And for me, it's just, if there's something on your plan that you can't automatically tell what it is, note it. Like, I know that this is a bed, but if you want to get fancy and tell me what kind of a bed is, you may, give me some detail. You can also use notes to show what type of material something is. Like, you can put one kind of near the floor. It might not have an arrow, it might just be a text box. Like, you might be able just to put like carpet finish or tile finish. But again, add as many notes as you can, and your grade will not just depend on the notes that you put in, but it'll also depend on how neatly they were put in. And you guys don't have to go online and find like manufacturer numbers or anything like that. Really, for me, I just want to know that you can do a custom style and that they're put in nicely and neatly. And then same with your window tags. Any questions about that?